Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Paul Graney. Here are today's top stories. Amid the coronavirus outbreak, the US will start to quarantine travelers arriving from China. This as officials work to keep the threat level low. The White House holding a summit today to end human trafficking. The president signing an executive order to assist survivors. In President Trump's impeachment trial, the Senate voted not to call witnesses to testify, nor for extra documents. The decision ushers in the final vote of the trial. Multiple levels of law enforcement prepare to keep Super Bowl 54 safe, and that includes stepping up efforts against the coronavirus. And a French car show displays new technologies in futuristic vehicles. We look at the latest designs in the auto industry. In response to the coronavirus, the US has imposed travel restrictions on people entering the country. Starting Sunday, anyone coming from China may be subjected to mandatory quarantine for 14 days or even blocked from entering, even if they don't have virus-like symptoms.
The U.S. has taken additional steps to protect its citizens from the highly contagious coronavirus. As of 5 p.m. on February 2nd, travel restrictions will apply to people arriving from China, particularly for those arriving from Hubei province, where the outbreak began.
Any U.S. citizen returning to the United States who has been in Hubei province in the previous 14 days will be subject to up to 14 days of mandatory quarantine. Any U.S. citizen returning to the United States who has been in the rest of mainland China within the previous 14 days will undergo proactive entry health screening at a select number of ports of entry and up to 14 days of monitored self-quarantine. Foreign nationals, other than immediate family of U.S. citizens and permanent residents who have traveled in China within the last 14 days, will be denied entry into the United States.
The World Health Organization deemed the outbreak a global health emergency on Thursday, but officials say the risk for people in the U.S. is still low. Their aim is to keep it that way. They say the main danger comes from the unknowns surrounding the virus.
Unknowns around incubation period, unknowns about the speed of transmissibility, unknowns about asymptomatic transmission, unknowns about severity.
But what they do know is that the virus can be passed on even before symptoms develop. Officials referenced a case in Germany where a carrier caused 3 more infections before she fell ill herself.
So there now are 4 cases. One of the problems with when the virus is transmitted in an asymptomatic way and has its implications, it puts a terrible burden on the screening process.
The first group under quarantine is made up of U.S. citizens who evacuated Wuhan on Wednesday. They must remain at a California air base for 14 days, where specialists will monitor them for symptoms. This is the CDC's first federal quarantine in 50 years.
While we recognize this is an unprecedented action, we are facing an unprecedented public health threat.
Among the group are U.S. contractors, State Department personnel, babies, and children. Locations of other quarantine centers are still unknown.
And as the virus spreads around the world, over 60 other countries are placing various forms of immigration control on people traveling from China.
Amid the ongoing concern of the virus outbreak, 62 countries around the globe, including the U.S., have placed some form of immigration control on Chinese citizens. Singapore has barred all visitors from mainland China. Vietnam and the Czech Republic have stopped issuing visas to Chinese citizens. Nearly 50 airline companies, including major U.S. and European airlines, have canceled some or all flights to and from mainland China. Delta, American, and United Airlines said they would halt all flights to China.
And in other news, on Capitol Hill, the next phase of the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump is underway. Senators listened to hours of debate over whether or not to admit more documents and witnesses, such as Trump's former national security advisor. After back and forth, the chamber rejected the motion, voting 51-49.
The 10th day of the Senate's impeachment trial was laser-focused on debate, ahead of a vote on whether or not to allow new witness testimony, with House managers making their last pitch.
Let's put John Bolton under oath.
And the president's legal team opposing.
It is not our job to expand the House's investigation.
Support for hearing from John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, and others has been dwindling. Most Senate Republicans, who control the chamber, are prepared to acquit President Trump.
Let's get on with the work of the people and put this behind us.
Possible testimony from Bolton sparked interest after a report about his upcoming book. He reportedly wrote in a draft of the book that Trump told him he wanted to freeze millions in military aid for Ukraine until the country investigated Joe Biden and his son Hunter.
The decision to reject documents and witnesses paves the way for a later vote to acquit President Trump. And in other news, President Trump signing an executive order today to combat human trafficking. He also created a new position at the White House just for that purpose. Reporter Kevin Hogan has more.
On Friday, President Trump signed an executive order combating human trafficking on the 20th anniversary of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. His daughter and senior advisor spoke at the summit.
Human trafficking is believed to be one of the largest criminal activities in the world, with an estimated 24.9 million people trapped in forced labor, domestic servitude, or commercial sex trafficking.
The executive order creates a new position at the White House to help survivors and protect children from being preyed upon.
This order expands prevention education programs, promotes housing opportunities for survivors, and prioritizes the removal of child sexual abuse material from the internet.
Human traffickers use the internet extensively, and now they're using military-grade encryption to keep from being detected.
We just can't have chat rooms and websites that are involved in grooming children victims or selling trafficked women, sites that are impenetrable to law enforcement.
Barr is working with other countries, including the UK and Canada, on this issue. Helping survivors rebuild their lives is a big part of the battle. That work is often done by nonprofits like Wellspring Living in Atlanta, a city with high rates of human trafficking.
When my apprenticeship was complete, I got a job at the City of Atlanta watershed, and I absolutely love where I'm at today.
In the coming months,
the president said the administration will not rest until they've stopped all human traffickers and liberated all survivors. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo meeting with Ukraine's president and foreign minister today. Pompeo saying at the meeting that the U.S. is committed to supporting Ukraine. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo emphasized Washington's support for Ukraine on a visit to the country's capital, Kiev, on Friday.
Today, I'm here with a clear message. The United States sees that the Ukrainian struggle for freedom, democracy, and prosperity is a valiant one. Our commitment to support it will not waver.
Ukraine counts on Washington for diplomatic support, sanctions on Moscow, and military aid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said relations between Ukraine and the U.S. were very good. He said he has answered this question repeatedly in relation to the impeachment trial of President Trump.
It seems to me, honestly, that on the contrary, there are very good relations between our countries, not just in words. The U.S. supports and defends Ukraine.
Pompeo confirmed the U.S. will maintain financial support for Ukraine's security. He said they talked about the economic opportunity for American businesses coming to Ukraine, noting that he had named a few of them to Zelensky that morning. He also said he'll find the appropriate opportunity for President Zelensky to visit the White House when there are things that they can deliver. He said that there was no condition to arranging the visit. Earlier on Friday, Pompeo paid tribute to Ukrainian soldiers killed in the eastern separatist conflict. Ukraine continues to battle Russian-backed fighters in a war over its sovereign territory, including the Republic of Crimea. The ongoing dispute has claimed more than 13,000 lives since 2014. And still to come, we delve further into the coronavirus outbreak. While other countries are evacuating their citizens, the Chinese regime has announced it will bring its citizens back to the epicenter. More on that after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. the Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
The US will bar foreign nationals coming from China from entering the country. But what's the situation like where it all began, inside Wuhan, China? Our reporter Tiffany Meyer brings us the details.
And the latest on the coronavirus outbreak. So far, no deaths have been reported outside of China, even though the coronavirus has been confirmed in 23 countries outside of China. New measures to try and prevent the spread of the coronavirus overseas include more airlines stopping flights. Countries are increasingly closing borders to China, the latest being Singapore and Mongolia. And the warning level continues to rise. The Department of Defense reiterated the State Department's warning not to travel to China. So far, over 20 countries either have or are working to evacuate their citizens from Wuhan and get them home. On Friday, the first plane bringing UK citizens and some European citizens arrived back in the UK. The problem is, one British man told local media his Chinese wife wasn't allowed to leave Wuhan. This Tuesday, UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab raised the issue to the Chinese regime, which insisted it won't allow people with Chinese citizenship to leave. At this time, it is not clear if his wife has been allowed to board a plane. While countries are trying to pull their citizens from Wuhan, China is planning to fly its overseas citizens back to the virus-stricken Hubei province. People are reacting to the news on social media. One compares it to firefighters rescuing people from a burning building only to have the people put back in. Another responded, "It's enough to scare one to death." And yet another one calls out the regime, saying, shouldn't the Ministry of Foreign Affairs ask all countries to extend travelers' visas from Wuhan? While someone else points out the irony that while a Chinese passport might not allow you to go anywhere in the world, it will take you home from anywhere in the world. China has already pulled its citizens from Thailand and Malaysia today, people who are traveling there for vacation. The plane should have landed back in China by now, but as yet there are no official reports. Thailand has since said it will send its own plane to Wuhan to bring back its own citizens tomorrow. And now back to ground zero. In Wuhan, hospital staff lacking proper supplies are desperately making masks for themselves out of what looks like Ziploc bags and plastic twine. Now to southern China bordering Vietnam. In Nanning, the capital of a province about 750 miles from Wuhan, people are lining up for miles to buy face masks. Each person is only allowed to buy 3.
A new study released today warns big overseas cities in close exchange with China could become virus hotbeds. This if proper measures are not taken soon enough.
The prestigious medical journal Lancet published a new study today, estimating big cities outside China that have close transport exchanges with China could also become outbreak epicenters without substantial and timely intervention. Researchers estimate over 75,000 people were infected in Wuhan alone by January 25th. A large number of people had already left Wuhan and traveled to other large cities in China by then. Researchers infer the deadly outbreak could already have grown substantially in those cities, with a 1 to 2 week delay behind Wuhan. The study used data from the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention and the official aviation guide. Authors of the research do note there are limits to their study, and it's possible that the size of the outbreak is underestimated. Reporting by Juliet Song, NTD News, New York.
A new research paper authored by Chinese health officials showed that human-to-human transmission of the new virus started to happen in China as early as mid-December. However, Chinese authorities didn't confirm human transmission until a month later, on January 20th.
A new paper published on Wednesday in the New England Journal of Medicine has sparked an online storm on China's social media. It said the coronavirus started to spread person to person in mid-December, and evidence of this was clear in early January. But Chinese authorities insist there was no evidence until late January. Angry internet users are accusing health authorities of withholding information about the coronavirus. Some of China's top health authorities, including the director of the country's Center for Disease Control, are among the authors of the paper. Wang Liming, a biography professor in China, wrote in a post that he was more than outraged and literally speechless after reading the paper, calling it the first solid proof that human transmission was intentionally hidden from the public. The professor's post was quickly deleted. The paper also contradicts some of China's other official announcements. It shows that from January 1st to 11th, 7 healthcare providers were infected with the virus. However, China's official notice said on January 13th there was no infection among healthcare providers. One post online accused the health officials of risking billions of lives. Others wrote that the researchers are also helpless if the authorities don't allow them to disclose the information. The mayor of Wuhan said in an earlier interview that local officials aren't allowed to disclose information about the outbreak to the public without approval from higher officials. The comment sparked public outrage over officials' blame game and lack of transparency. Pan Zhou, NTD News.
And the SARS epidemic cost the global economy tens of billions of dollars. Now experts are looking into the potential impact the coronavirus could have on the global economy.
It's a rapidly developing outbreak. And in the coronavirus's path, businesses are shuttering and industries like tourism are taking a hit. These signs have experts and the Fed concerned about what this could mean for the global economy.
There is likely to be some disruption to activity in China and possibly globally based on the spread of the virus to date and the travel restrictions and business closures that have already been imposed.
The National Institute of Health determined that the last viral outbreak in China in 2003 resulted in a global economic loss of $40 billion. Starbucks, McDonald's, U.S. Airlines, and other companies have already cut back their services or have shut them down inside mainland China. NTD contributor and business professor Frank Xie said China's large-scale city lockdowns are also dragging down its economy.
It's unprecedented in world history, basically. And I'm expecting the Chinese economy is going to be dragged down at least, to 2% if the thing continues until February and March.
Professor Xie said it's too early to speculate what this could mean globally. The Fed chairman likewise said this outbreak is still developing and that they're carefully monitoring the situation.
And still to come, a French car show displays new technologies and futuristic vehicles. See the auto industry's latest designs after the break.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
And moving to the UK, after 3 prime ministers and 2 general elections, Brexit has happened. The UK now immediately enters a new stage of Brexit known as the transition period. Our UK correspondent Jane Worrell reports from London.
Brexit done. Okay, so Brexit is actually happening tonight. So what's next? Well, the UK will enter a transition period for 11 months. During this time, the UK won't be part of the EU's institutions, but it will still be bound by EU rules, which includes contributing to the EU budget. For now, though, people in the UK probably wouldn't notice anything different. In this twilight period, talks about trade between the UK and the EU can begin. The deadline to agree on the negotiations is December 31st, 2020.
It is an unprecedented challenge in terms of the scope of what's being done, which is not just a UK-EU agreement, but also parallel work on other trade agreements around the world and in a very short timescale.
If time runs out, the UK could still exit the transition period without agreeing to a trade deal with the EU. The EU as a bloc is the UK's largest trading partner, and the US is the largest in terms of individual countries. When the clock strikes 11 tonight, it will signal the start of negotiations in the months and years ahead. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
In a speech at 10 p.m, an hour before the UK left the EU, the Prime Minister said how it's not an end but a beginning. And in other news, new technologies will probably change the way we drive. In Paris, the Concept Car Festival invited famous brand designers to display their new models. Our France correspondent David Vives has the details.
Future designers sketching future cars. Ferrari, Mercedes, Bentley, Bugatti made their way to the stage under the Invalides Dome in Paris for the Paris Concept Car Show. Fresh out of the designer's workshop, this is what the big brand designers have imagined for you.
Design makes a difference in a driver's mind. Getting yourself a car is about having a crush, being passionate, feeling emotion. If you create a car that's perfectly equipped with technology, but that lacks in design, it will likely be a commercial failure.
Old brands, new models. It seems every car design has its own DNA, which their makers try to sustain and refresh over time. This Bentley is one of the festival stars.
To keep this very characteristic graphic, this big massive grille and these big round lights. There are about 6,000 LEDs on the grille, so there's a very nice, when you open up you start up the car, a very beautiful pattern which can be customized.
All car manufacturers refresh their models every 5 to 8 years. Opel's new concept car, particularly its front-end design, shows us the face of the next generation of Opels. And this is what a driver-oriented screen looks like. It's very clean, very pure. Door panel, air vents, and all dashboard functions are integrated in this digital screen.
New technologies are also a part of the future cars.
Cars will become more and more autonomous. The interior of the car is becoming very important for car builders these days. People also expect to spend less time driving, and perhaps more time relaxing, chatting with passengers, watching films, and working.
And here's an example of a Lego cube-shaped car adapted for urban mobility. Easy to park, room for luggage.
In the drive pod, you actually will put your cell phone on it, just dock it, and this mirror will actually reflect your screen. So you actually don't need the navigation system of the car. You actually use your own app on your cell phone.
For the next concept car show, Depois said he has a dream.
I would like to go to Central Park in New York and have an exhibition there. That would be extraordinary.
Reporting by David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
And still to come after the break, multiple levels of law enforcement prepare to keep Super Bowl 54 safe. That includes stepping up efforts against the coronavirus.
Every once in a while, something comes along, so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepoch.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
The U.S. Homeland Security Chief spoke about the massive security effort that's going into Sunday's Super Bowl 54. This includes precautions against the coronavirus.
Law enforcement is preparing for Super Bowl 54 in South Florida with the highest level of security. Thousands of police from local, state, and federal agencies will coordinate their efforts to protect Sunday's game between the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers.
Not only does an event of this nature lend itself as a possible target for violent actors and potential terrorists, but it's also an attractive destination for human trafficking activity, as well as the sale of counterfeit goods.
Wolf said federal agencies will do both things seen and unseen to protect the event. Homeland Security is also taking measures against the coronavirus and screening travelers arriving from China.
A number of flights that are coming in from mainland China are certainly being flagged. So we, along with CDC, we're doing enhanced screening at 5 primary airports. That has now expanded to 20 airports, including Miami here.
Homeland Security has given the event its highest threat rating, despite citing no specific major threats. Multiple local police departments will lead a massive ground operation with thousands of officers. Miami police said officers will patrol on foot, on horseback, in boats, and in the air.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.